action.
Alright, thanks Benedict. Now I'll be talking about ASEAN's economic integration. What was done, the economic blueprint, the positive and negative impacts, as well as the effectiveness of ASEAN. Okay, next slide. Firstly, what was done? There is the creation of free trade areas which was established on 28 January 1992. It was aimed at attracting more foreign direct investors to the ASEAN countries. They do so by reducing intra-regional tariffs and eliminate non-tariff barriers within ASEAN. It was effective from 2002 to 2003, where there was an increase in exports by 11.71% and an increase in imports by 6.01%. Some of the more important FTAs are the ASEAN-China Free Trade Agreement (ACFTA) and the ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement (AIFTA). Next, the economic blueprint. This is for the ASEAN Economic Community for economic integration. They want to transform ASEAN into a region with free movement of goods, services, investment, skilled labor, and freer flow of capital. Their aims are to have a single market and production base, to have equitable economic development, and to have a competitive economic region, and to be fully integrated into the global economy. Here are the positive impacts. There will be greater prosperity when there is an increase in trade for all ASEAN countries. More goods and services will be available, and there will be cheap products due to low tariffs on imports, and there will be a higher demand for goods. Also, there will be a common objective to reduce trade barriers within ASEAN. So there will be more agreements and less conflicts. ASEAN will also gain increasing influence when they do well as an economic community, and there will be greater bargaining power in negotiation with supranationals such as the United Nations. Finally, there will be a creation of jobs where there is an increased number of jobs through migration. These are the negative impacts. Firstly, a change in trading partners. As trade opportunities will be given to member countries instead of countries outside of ASEAN, this will lead to a reduced trade with a possibly more efficient non-member nation. There will be a change in employment as well, as companies will hire workers with higher productivity or move their production to low-wage nations for cheap labor. This will lead to job dislocation when countries move towards higher wage-paying industries to increase their competitiveness. Lastly, there will be a loss of control. This is because integration will require nations to lose their sovereignty to implement the same policies. However, governing systems are different, which was explained by Benedict just now, so it will be difficult to have a common policy. Next, the graph shows the effect of the major FTAs I mentioned just now. The bottom left graph shows the increase in trade volume between ASEAN as a whole and China, and the top graph shows the imports and exports of each ASEAN country with China. Lastly, below that is the graph that shows the trade volume of each ASEAN country with India. Next, this graph shows the utilization of ASEAN Free Trade Agreement in Thailand, where there is an increasing percentage of exports under the AFTA, which shows the effectiveness of AFTA as it encourages more trade within the region. Next, the graph shows an increase in the total of foreign direct investments within ASEAN and outside of ASEAN. Next, this graph shows the GDP trend of ASEAN, and the next graph also shows the GDP per capita of ASEAN, both of which have an increasing trend. Next, it shows the increasing purchasing power parity, and the next graph shows the increasing trend of FDI, and there is a huge leap between 2000 and 2011. The next graph shows the increasing trend for the trade, and the next graph shows the unemployment rate, where there is a decreasing trend over time after the implementation of the economic blueprint. Next, the graph shows the economic freedom of ASEAN, and this is bad because only 3 countries are above the world average. This shows a lack of economic freedom for ASEAN. Finally, I will evaluate the effectiveness. The free trade agreements are effective because ever since its implementation, there has been an increase in trade within ASEAN countries. Trade with China and ASEAN has increased 8-fold since its implementation from 2001 to 2012, and trade between India and ASEAN has increased 2-fold between 2007 to 2012. The ASEAN economy have an increasing GDP since its implementation of the ASEAN Economic Blueprint, and there is an increase in purchasing power of ASEAN as a whole, but is ineffective in lowering unemployment rates for all countries such as Brunei and Myanmar. I will now pass over my time to Julia.